Can I just level with you guys here? Heavy is really hard to write about. Like, I mean, what do you want me to say? He's incredibly simplistic. And the thing about making a YouTube video like I do is that if something is simple, then you don't really have much to say about it, or at least you shouldn't. Meaning that if you don't have a lot to say, you're gonna end up with a really short video. And that's frankly just not why people are here. That is not why people watch this channel. We're not here to watch YouTube shorts about how heavy is easy, we're here to wait patiently until the YouTuber has a mental breakdown in public. But at the same time, like, what do you want me to say? It's Heavy. Heavy only does one thing, and that is his greatest strength and his greatest weakness. Heavy tries to position himself in such a way that his opponents cannot easily break line of sight with him, and he tries to be as close as possible so that he can easily shoot people and deal a lot of damage. And while Heavy is a very easy character to pick up and be effective with, which is part of his strengths, being a good character for new players especially, it's also his greatest weakness by far. Heavy is an incredibly one-dimensional character design that never really got any of the kind of evolution or additions that other characters got as items were added to the game. Like, Heavy got a lot of items, but all of them are just almost exactly the same thing that he was always doing, and many of them suck, which is disappointing because Heavy was the character that needed additions the most. I have a question for you when it comes to Heavy. Why does he have two other weapons? Like, think about it especially in the context of 2007 Team Fortress 2. Why on earth does Heavy have a shotgun? Shotguns are for two things. They are for close range damage, or for shooting at the mailman with, because you know that's the person who keeps putting queen wasps in your mailbox.
But not this time, you son of a bitch.
But close range damage is the domain of the minigun. It is the king of that realm. More so than probably any other weapon. So instead of messing around with a shotgun, you would probably always just want to have your minigun out. I mean, yeah, you have to rev the minigun, but revving the minigun is not very hard. And if you're trying to use your shotgun, you have to switch from whatever you're holding to the shotgun, which is about as much time as revving the minigun takes. So there's almost no reason to use a shotgun on Heavy, unless you're intentionally doing so as a part of the hilarious Fat Scout loadout, in which case you're using a shotgun because you know damn well that it's terrible. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I have a little theory about the shotguns in Team Fortress 2. I think the shotguns in Team Fortress 2 are a result of just necessity. At some point in Team Fortress 2's lifespan, the game had to actually come out. And for Valve, that's really scary, because that means actually finishing a project for once. And so instead of making a variety of different secondaries that worked well for all of the different classes who are currently using a shotgun, the Heavy, the Pyro, the Soldier, the Engineer, they decided to just say, F it. We're just gonna make one gun that we can apply to all of these characters and have it be relatively good. And overall, they succeeded with the shotgun. It's a good primary for the Engineer that knocks his power down enough that he's not really a combat class, but not so much that he's incapable. It's a good secondary for the Soldier, who would otherwise have to rely exclusively on projectiles, which means he has a much worse matchup against Pyros, against Scouts, etc. It works well on the Pyro because, you know, I'm sure there's a reason. And similarly to the Pyro, it works okay-ish on Heavy because maybe there's times where you can't rev up and you have the shotgun out or something. I don't know, it gets murky with those two. But the same thing goes for the fists with the Heavy. Like, melee weapons in vanilla TF2 are the worst weapons for every slot except Spy. That's why as time went on, melee weapons shifted their design to being more like utility items, things that you get value out of just for holding and having equipped rather than actually hitting somebody with it. And the ones that did reward you for hitting people did so in a way that actually mattered outside of 65 damage. The Eyelander, the Southern Hospitality, stuff like that. And while the Heavy does benefit from that change, probably more than almost any other change in Team Fortress 2, not much else has been done to him that actually makes him better. The lunchbox items were definitely the most positive change Heavy ever received. In my opinion, the sandwich was his intended secondary for Team Fortress 2's launch, but they just never really got around to it, or they saved it for an update intentionally or something, I don't know, in the same way that the flare gun was for the Pyro. Each of these two things just synergizes so much better with the character than the shotgun does that it's almost a no-brainer conclusion. But while the lunchbox items were huge for Heavy because they don't compete with the minigun in any capacity, and they provide some actual utility for him, that was pretty much it. Heavy never got anything else. He got a variety of different miniguns that were all just kind of worse than stock, or were laterally better than stock. He got a bunch of melee weapons, some of which are okay, others are terrible. He got more sandwiches, again, some of which are terrible, some of which are pretty good. And that was it. That was all Heavy really got. Other characters like Soldier got banners, Pyro got the ability to jump around, Medic got the crossbow, Demo Man got an entire second class, and Heavy got nothing. Heavy never really got anything that allows for Heavy players to better showcase their skills. He never got miniguns that are harder to use, he never got like movement options of any real kind except for just walking faster. He never got like anything. and that's unlike how other characters developed. Pyro, for example, who's a very similar character, got all kinds of stuff for Pyros to get good at, like through comboing and use of the detonator. He evolved as items were added to the game, but Heavy never did. He was simple to pick up, and that's it. He never transcended this nature. Like, the only other skills outside of what he started with that he ever got was managing your sandwiches. And that's it. And frankly, calling that a skill is, I mean, it's not a stretch, but it's really not the hardest thing to do in the game. Heavy, much like in 2007, is basically just tracking people, positioning correctly, and now throwing sandwiches at people's feet. And of course, learning how to actually stay awake while you do all this, which is one of the most chiefly important Heavy skills. And it's disappointing that that's the case. And this is all just like a big looping issue. Heavy never got anything, so he never got any subclasses, so he's always just doing the same thing over and over again because he never got anything. Heavy is one-dimensional because he never got anything to make him 2 or 3-dimensional, so he stays one-dimensional, which means he's boring, which means that you want to have a subclass, etc, etc. Heavy's just a mess. And the thing that makes this a little annoying to make a video about is that the solution is very obvious. If Heavy doesn't do enough stuff, then we just need to give him more stuff to do. How am I supposed to come up with nebulous pseudo-solutions if the answer is so simple? Did you ever stop to think about me, chatter, huh? Did you think that my job was too easy? I'm a YouTuber, okay? I have to work 70 hours a week playing video games to make these videos, and what do I get? Just money. I don't even get challenge out of this one, because the answer is, again, relatively simple. It's a simple problem, therefore it typically has a simple answer. But also that it's a little difficult to give Heavy something to do without getting experimental. One thing I think could be cool is to make it so that the Heavy can give the benefits of his lunchbox item to whomever he throws it to. So like if you have the buffalo steak sandwich, you toss it to somebody and they get mini crits for a couple of seconds. Something like that. This would further diversify and also make more useful all of the different lunchbox items, and also would give Heavy sort of a supporting role that he could use to break up his normal gameplay and also to be more utilitarian throughout the entirety of the match. Additionally, I think a cool change to package with this would be making it so that lunchbox items recharge on damage dealt rather than just on time. Making it so that good Heavies are rewarded for their good positioning and their good tracking, and can produce more sandwiches for their team versus Heavies that are not as good. But honestly, I don't know what else you could change about Heavy that still operates within his normal functioning and isn't just like a completely new mechanic that would actually benefit him in a substantial way. You can do some housekeeping, like perhaps fixing up some of Heavy's less than desirable melee weapons. There's basically 3 Heavy melees that really need to be readjusted. The Eviction Notice, the Bear Claws, and this might be hard to hear, the stock. So first off, when it comes to stock melee weapons again are terrible in Team Fortress 2, except for the knife, and frankly I think they should update pretty much all of them to have an actual viable niche within the melee slots of basically every class, most notoriously the fists and the shovel, in my opinion. The thing about Heavy is that again, he benefited very greatly from melee weapons taking a design shift towards being utilitarian items, and obviously stock doesn't do that. So, in my opinion, and I know this is against the rules, but we should probably make it so that stock has some kind of very basic benefit for being held out. And I don't know what this one little thing is, but you could do something, maybe like sandwich regeneration or something? I don't know, you could figure it out. Now, as far as weapons I have a more concrete opinion on, the Bear Claws could really use a buff. They are terribly designed and extremely unintuitive. It's a weapon where you're supposed to get close to people as Heavy, the slowest and biggest target in the entire game, to hit them in melee, where your opponents are dealing more damage, so it gives you damage vulnerability. That's really rough. And frankly, I think a good thing you could do to this weapon to kind of fix it is just to give it a little bit of lifesteal. Now, this wouldn't exactly fix this weapon. I mean, at 2 in a red, this thing is just ridiculously overcosted for what it does, but also, to use the warrior spirit, you have to, like, get close to people, and that alone is difficult enough when you're taking extra damage. But with this change, at the very least, if you actually get to someone and you can stick to them, you can reward yourself and sustain yourself, and hopefully don't just get plastered by a shotgun blast, and can actually, like, kill people. And then you have the Eviction Notice. So, a lot of bad TF2 weapons know what they're trying to do, but they're just not good at it, or they're outclassed by some other option. The Eviction Notice has literally no clue what it is trying to be. It's not good for melee Heavy, and it's not good for regular Heavy because it's neither good at killing people, nor does it provide any actual meaningful utility, especially in comparison to the gloves of running urgently. Because Heavy truly just cannot have shit. Like, if you're playing melee heavy, you're probably also using a buffalo steak sandwich, on top of sniffing markers, so you already have a movement speed buff, and you're locked to using your melee weapon, meaning that the health drain is disproportionately affecting you since you're locked into using it, and also making it so that you don't as much really need the movement speed buff that the eviction notice gives you inherently. It gives you a buff on speed when you hit somebody, meaning that you are better at sticking to people, but again, you're probably using the buffalo steak sandwich, which means you're already faster, which means you're already better at sticking to people. And if this is supposed to be complementary to a more traditional heavy playstyle, A, you're never going to pull out your melee weapon, B, if you are, you're going to want to pull out the Fists of Steel, because that's one of the only ones that actually gives you any meaningful utility, it allows you to get out of bad situations, and C, if you're not using the Fists of Steel, you're probably using the Gloves of Running Urgently, which serves a similar purpose, and does it way better than this does. Like, why would you ever switch to this weapon if you have a minigun that you're actively trying to use? You would have to actually be out of ammo, and that's a very niche situation to be in. So yeah, this thing is just literally has no clue what it's trying to be. It's like the missing chunk of the warrior spirit that would have made that weapon a lot better, just kind of fell off and became its own weapon, and as such it feels incomplete, because it is. It's like barely even an actual weapon concept. It's a cool idea, but I don't think it belongs on heavy. It belongs on like Demo Man or something. Like if there was a weapon in this game where whiffing was more punishing than it is for most melee weapons, then having this combo reward someone on hit thing would actually be really cool, but that's not heavy. I also find it kind of weird that this weapon makes it so that you talk like you're in a YouTube poop for 3 seconds. Like I just don't understand Valve's vision on this one, but whatever. Weirdos. Frankly, I would rather see this kind of effect, this sort of concept where you're rewarding the player for hitting people by giving them better stats, ramping up, would work better as a minigun, as you'll find later. But as far as fixing this thing goes, I think that it's maybe not actually that hard. For one thing, maybe we could just take off the minus 60% damage penalty that this has for absolutely no fucking reason. Yeah, might be a good start. Then I think, honestly, you should make this more like the Boston Basher. They're rather similar weapons. Both of them have penalties for missing and rewards for hitting, more so than just the traditional damage that you get for hitting any melee weapon. And I think doing a similar thing to that for this would be a good idea. And on top of that, I really don't think that this thing needs to drain health for the meager speed gain you get. I think taking 20 max health when you swap to it is fine, but this thing draining health on top of having minus 60% damage is so ridiculous. It's literally fucking useless, and it takes like 1,000 hits to hit anybody, and it takes like 1,000,000 to kill someone. But that's about it for the melee weapons. As far as changing up any of the miniguns, I would say that one of them really should be adjusted to, or this should just be a weapon that's added, to a minigun that is truly harder to use or which again rewards heavies for aiming well. Probably both. Something to increase the skill ceiling of the class. Heavy's main aiming skill is tracking, and frankly he's one of the only characters that actually utilizes tracking regularly when he's using his weapons. Like the minigun, the pistol, the SMG, and the flamethrower are really the only weapons. And it's unfortunate that there was never a high skill option for Heavy considering he's uniquely qualified for this type of skill. But it's okay because we got the Brass Beast, a weapon for people who think that moving is just too hard. And I think a good way to kind of manifest this idea is to make something like what the Eviction Notice is trying to be. Something that starts off worse than the stock, but ramps up to be better or more rewarding than the stock. Really? A weapon that starts off worse than the stock, but as a reward for accuracy would end up being better than the stock. In the same way that the combos work for the Eviction Notice, except that the Eviction Notice is just always bad. But yeah, Heavy's miniguns are honestly some of the most uninspired weapons in all of Team Fortress 2. Like, Team Fortress 2 has really good weapon design overall, but some slots are just kinda crap compared to others, and Heavy's miniguns are definitely one of them. They're all just very light variations on the same thing. None of them are that different, except the Tomislav in a slot that really needed them to be very different, which is rather unfortunate. And I think that a minigun like this, combined with my suggestion for making it so that damage is what gives you your sandwiches, and I think overall Heavy would be a far more skillful class. And as far as supporting an existing subclass, it's probably pretty easy. You probably just need to give Heavy a primary that like gives him health and speed or something, and that'll make the Fat Scout subclass better. Though frankly, I think coming up with an entirely new subclass would probably be the best idea. because his existing subclasses are terrible and are, in my opinion, not very fun. Like, Fat Scout is like Scout with fewer options, and Melee Heavy is like Demo Knight, but not as fun. Entirely carried by the fact that killing people with inefficient weapons feels cool, because your brain very conveniently ignores all the times you died because you're using a dogshit loadout. But yeah, there's not really much to say. Heavy desperately needed that update way more than Pyro did, but yeah, mentioning that parts of Team Fortress 2 need an update is like mentioning that the sky is blue, or that mosquitoes are Martian surveillance drones. Heavy's just like a perfect storm of mediocrity. He's not bad, he's just not good. He can be very powerful, but his weaknesses are easy to exploit. He's really easy to play, which is both a good and a bad thing, but he's also really one-dimensional and could have used a lot more synergy or different ways to play the character, which he never got. He's just Heavy. He's just there. There's just not really much to say. Basically, the point of this video is that Heavy needed an air dash. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I probably won't be doing one of these class videos for at least another couple of videos, just because these are starting to get boring to me. But yeah, look forward to some Team Fortress 2 related and not so related content coming up. See you soon.
Day 75. I've made another Team Fortress 2 video. They're all busy watching it. It's sated them, for now. But I've got to find a way out of here. This game, it hasn't been updated in 17 years. There's nothing to talk about. Like, what do they want me to say? I fear at this rate I'm going to be making videos about how all the new skins are evil and workshop content creators are trying to kill Valve employees or something. Or I'll be reviewing every single weapon individually. I don't know how I can even do that. Like, what are you going to say about half the weapons? Oh, the direct hit hits people directly. Whoa. Fuck. I've got to find a way out of here. End recording.